How's it going, everyone? This is Cody Ahern with the MLP BIMJA podcast. We got our friend Jason Steele with us here today. Jason, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hey, guys. This is Jason Steele, VDC manager at MMC Contractors National out of Kansas City. So I have been with MMC now for about 8 years, but overall kind of doing BIM for about the last 15, 16 years. And then, but I'm a pipe fitter by trade, so I've been in the trade since 2000.
So did you do AutoCAD when you first got into BIM?
Yeah, so when I first started, I actually kind of got started as working for a contractor, and I was out in the field as a welder, and I was teaching at our training center, just a basic AutoCAD class, and I'd taken a QuickPen PD3D class, and the contractor I was working for found out that I was teaching, and that maybe I knew a little bit about 3D, and it was pretty new to everybody at the time, and they had a need and asked me if I'd be interested in doing it. And so I kind of started small. We just took on like a central utility plant, and then everything else we still did 2D AutoCAD. And then as we learned and grew, and I learned the software and started training others in the group, and then we just developed, and yeah, we were in pipe designer for several years, and then switched over to Fabrication Academy P or whatever it was called at the time. Probably about 2011, 2012. And then we were in AutoCAD. I left there in 2014, came over to MMC. We were still in AutoCAD and fabrication. And then probably 2017 is when we made the leap into Revit, and we've been there ever since.
It seemed about 2017 is when we were finally able to utilize fabrication inside of Revit, and that's when it was a total game changer. Man, I must be spoiled. As long as I've been in the industry, we've had Navisworks.
Yeah, that was 2000 and I think 2006, 2007. They bought us a license of Jetstream, and yeah, I was told that we bought you this new software called Navisworks, and we told the general contractor that you would lead coordination and have a class report for him next week.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting when nobody's using the same insertion point. Nobody's ever heard of it before. The designers are unfamiliar with it, so they're in Revit at the time, and they have no idea that there's a way for them to give us the information. We figured out that we could kick out a DWF, but it was coming out all skewed, and it was a mess. So we worked through it, and really never produced a deliverable on that particular project. But the next project, worked with the same general contractor, had a better idea, and then we jumped in with both feet, and we're pretty successful with it.
I mean, I went to school at ITT Tech, got a degree in drafting when I was about 20. I always thought I was going to do floor plans and houses and stuff, more of like an architectural dream, right? And then reality hit me like a year into the industry that's not really feasible unless you're like an architect, Doing houses is boring. Doing 2D stuff got real boring real quick, and I ended up here with Mike into this 3D world using fabrication and programs I never saw in school, right? So I had to teach myself a lot of the database stuff, fabrication stuff, and then when we switched to Revit, we had Kyle Anderson who taught us quite a bit, but same thing. There's just a lot you have to teach yourself, and I find through training others and kind of my role in teaching and creating workflows that I learn a lot more that way than actually going to a class or listening to a teacher. I mean, could you relate to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always tell everybody that I learned more teaching, just different things that you just never knew were, a lot of those books, the training material that were provided through the UA were, they'd have little tips and tricks and things that I was like, oh, I didn't realize that. And you notice that as you're going through the book and teaching your students. When I first started teaching, this was a lot of my friends that were a year behind me in the apprenticeship program. And so it was difficult. I was about 6 months ahead of them. And so any leg up that I could get as I was going through that book was valuable to me. And so, as I went through and taught at the training center, and then as I started doing this for a career, I was able to quickly start identifying new talent, and so I was pretty lucky in the sense that I was able to kind of groom and handpick who I wanted and bring them up through. And then now, here we are 15, 16 years later, and went from, one guy, one pipe fitter doing it to now there's, I don't know what there is, there's probably 25 or 30 in the local that are doing it, maybe more. But I'm pretty fortunate that here, I've got 3 of the guys that are here working for me now have taken over at the training center, and they're doing a lot of stuff, and they've really built that program, and they're teaching for the UA, the ITP stuff, and it's awesome, and still kind of having that pipeline that we've built.
That's awesome. So it's like basically you've trained your replacements.
Exactly.
You can move on to bigger, better things. So you said you recruited a lot of those guys. You can tell fairly easily who's going to work out and who's not. I mean, what do you use to kind of gauge that?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I feel like I'm a pretty good judge of people, for one, but I really think that you can get a pretty good idea pretty quick of those who are going to be successful in an office environment, because it's not for everybody, and a lot of people that get in the trades don't get into the trades to set in an office environment and do this type of work. And of course, when I got in the trade, obviously I didn't have that in mind, because this wasn't an opportunity for us. And I think now we're starting to see some of the younger generation that are coming in that identified that this is an opportunity, but we need to get those guys trained, and they need to understand systems and basic piping practices and everything there. So yeah, I mean, I think that when you're teaching, you can really start to gauge and get a feel for, just by how somebody handles themselves during the course of a class. You kind of think about them being in a situation where they're speaking to your project team, or an engineer, architect, or general contractor, or even an owner, and how they're going to carry themselves. And really what we try to find is those guys that are, they're foreman material. They're guys that we want out running our jobs, and that's been the real power struggle internally with MMC, is just, we're training these apprentices, and we're training them with the intent of them going out and being some of our top superintendents and general foremen, and when they kind of take that turn and they're like, hey, I kind of want to give VDC a chance, then we got to have some tough conversations, and there's a little bit of heartburn there. But I think that you can identify those people, and like I say, we teach a Revit 1 class at our training center. We're starting to implement a Revit 2 class. We're starting to do some other things with Stratus and some other things that are other tools that are out there. And so, just how do these people carry themselves in a classroom environment, and then how would that translate into an office setting? Our VDC modelers do come from the trades. And so having that piping knowledge is valuable to us, but I'm going to tell you that, some of our best people did not come from the trades. They kind of had a similar background to you, or had went to a 4-year for a construction management degree, and this is the path that they went down. And so learning from each other is definitely, a value there. But, yes, learning the software is, I like to hire people that know the software. If I'm going to hire somebody out of a technical school or a college, then they better have superior software knowledge versus the guys that I bring in from the field. They've got that trade knowledge that's making them valuable to us. So then they start learning from each other, and then the really good ones are the guys that can just pick up the other side of that really quickly. And we've been pretty fortunate to have some of those people that have been able to pick up, whether it's the software side or the trade knowledge side, pretty quickly.
Yeah, well, that's definitely a good point. You definitely don't want to have to teach them both, right? And,
yeah, it's definitely a challenge. I mean, I think there's 27 in our group now, and we've kind of hit that wall where who's out there to go get do we start taking some chances on some younger people that are less experienced? Yeah, we get some of the guys who have kind of done their time in the field and are looking for a little bit of a more cushy job. But I think once they sit down in the chair and start doing it on a daily basis, they realize it's not as easy as they thought it was going to be. It's maybe a little bit, it's physically easier, but mentally it's draining. And I think anybody can see that after spend a week sitting in the chair doing it, and you see that pretty quick. But it's definitely a challenge. One of the things that we do, I always tell everybody that I want the best people in the country working for us, and unfortunately they don't all live in Kansas City. So I go out abroad and try to find those individuals. A lot of it's by word of mouth, and try to find those people, and then try to convince them that MMC's where they should work at and be a part of this team. And it's definitely a challenge though.
So those people end up relocating to work for MMC, or do you have some remote VDC guys?
Yeah, so we have some remote guys spread out throughout the country. The majority of our group is internal in-house here, and our Kansas City guys, but we do have a handful that are spread out throughout the country, work from home.
Talking about all the great awards that MMC has received for being one of the top mechanical firms and best places to work. Why do you think that is?
Well, I feel like we have a good family atmosphere at MMC. It's one of the things that drew me over here initially, and then obviously with growth, that becomes challenging, and just trying to keep that family atmosphere. And I think that MMC has done a really good job with that, and being able to have that large, quick growth, and still kind of keep that family first in mind, and you don't feel like you're a number. And I think that everybody's voice counts, and that's been one of the most important things to me is from the time that I walked in the door here and didn't know anybody and was a nobody, that I felt like my voice mattered, and still true today. Even though when I came over here 8 years ago, we were probably I don't know what we were doing, 80 or 100 million dollars a year, and today we're an over $300 million a year company. And obviously there's growing pains, but I still feel like we still have that family first and family atmosphere. And I think that's what makes us so successful.
Yeah, that's really important. I mean, that's definitely a quality that I think Mike at MLP's implemented from day one. And you don't see a lot of companies that allow their employees to put their family first. And when you do that, it definitely makes people want to stay there and want to work there and want to work for you, which goes a long way.
Yeah,
I think that kind of answered my other question was, how you keep your team happy. I'm assuming that a lot of that just kind of goes along those same lines, being there for them, listening to them, being proactive, and treating them like a human, basically, with respect.
Absolutely. And obviously, I mean, I think anybody can attest that, trying to do things today the way you did it 3 years ago is definitely challenging, and trying to keep your employees happy today is different than it was 3 years ago, because everybody got a taste of working from home and working remote, and then so trying to balance that flexibility of trying to give them the ability to do that if needed. That's been my biggest challenge, and trying to make sure that everybody's needs are met. We still feel like it's important that for communication and trying to keep everything on track, that we are still having those face-to-face interactions. But we obviously, the way that our department's worked is we're essentially virtual anyway. We're working all over the country. We're a national contractor, so we could be working in Maine or in Phoenix, and the crews spread throughout, and that's just how it's always been. So for us, it was a little bit less of a transition than maybe it was for our operations team or estimating, who wasn't as familiar with working in that type of environment. But that's really to kind of get back to the question is trying to hear them out, trying to make sure that they're heard and that they have a voice, and that we're not just trying to make decisions internally without, including everybody. And I think that we do a pretty good job of that, and probably not as good as I think we do, but I think if you pulled the overall company, that may not be the general consensus, but I feel like we try to, as our leadership team, we try to do a good job of putting our people first and making sure that their voices are all heard. And I think with that, I think you have happier employees.
Oh, 100%. There's nothing worse than feeling like nobody wants to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, and I will also say that, MMC is an ESOP corporation, so it's employee owned 100%. Obviously the CBA guys are not part of that, but those who are not part of a collective bargaining agreement are part employee owners, and so I think there's something there as well that they have a stake in it, and I think that also helps our company and our culture and really makes people feel like it's a good place to work.
Yeah, I've seen that with some other employee-owned companies out here in the Valley. I guess when you own a stock in that company, obviously it doing well benefits you directly as well. So
yeah, I think we do a really good job of including everybody, and we're starting to kind of get back to what we once were as far as our interaction and social gatherings and things like that we weren't able to do for a few years there, a couple years anyway. And so one of those things is with our ESOP and our share price reveal and all that. They really try to they do a different theme every year, and they try to get everybody in, and they broadcast it, and so that those who can't be here are part of it. And so, one year they set the whole thing up like it was a sports center, and our CEO, CFO, and everybody's up there. And then they've got some of the other people in our corporate office are kind of walking around and interviewing people in the crowd, just trying to keep that company interaction, just try to make it fun. And that whole month leading up to that, they call it the ESOP month, and we're always doing things, whether we're having a Pop-A-Shock or tournament, or we've had a cornhole tournament. We've done several things that over the years that I've been here. They one year they did a costume skit contest, and so it's fun. It keeps everybody on their feet and having a good time.
That sounds good. So if we plan an MLP costume event, are you going to come out?
Absolutely. Why
Compete?
not?
All right. Sweet. When I guess last couple of questions, when choosing a BIM company to outsource to, if you ever do, and when you do, what do you look for in those companies?
So, this is something that I really, in the past, I really took a hard look at, and so there's a couple things. So, I like to go after a company that's obviously domestic. First and foremost, we just don't do any offshore outsourcing at all. We've had bad luck in the past. We don't do that. So then I try to look at UA members or smart or whatever, depending on what the need is, because we're a plumbing and piping shop. We don't do sheet metal. So if we need resources, obviously that's how we found MLP. Was we wanted a union quality detailing company to outsource to. We needed some sheet metal help, and that's how we found MLP. So in the past, I would go and jump on a plane and go visit a company and sit in their office and see how they operate and meet with them and talk to them and try to get a feel for their people and who I was going to be working with and just try to talk through all that stuff. And the past couple of years has not allowed us to do as much of that, but I haven't needed to. We've got a big enough group that we pretty much can handle anything that we need on the piping side internally. We've just needed some help on the sheet metal side, and now MLP's been working with us, and we've been with Eric now for probably 3 years. He's been working with us on a couple different projects. So but I'll be honest, as far as if and when we do need additional piping help, that presents some challenges for us, and it's more about just our deliverables and our standards and what our shop is expecting, and just trying to have the time to bring someone up to speed to know what our expectations are. Obviously, when you're an outsourced company, you're trying to be as efficient as you can for the contractor that you're working for. So sometimes you're not wanting to milk it out, but sometimes it takes that. You need to know what it's going to take to just blend in with that crew, because that's typically what we do. We don't fully outsource a project. We just try to have a blended crew and just supplement what we need, and to try to find those piping guys that we can just blend into our crew. And it's just going to take time. You have to have somebody that's worked with you and understands how MMC does things. And but that's definitely the challenge for us. But on the sheet metal side, MLP's been awesome and been a valuable partner for us.
Well, that's great to hear. I mean, yeah, Eric's awesome people. He's been doing this stuff for forever. I mean, I think he's been working with you as long as I can remember. So yeah, I love working with Eric.
That was kind of a crazy deal. I mean, you mentioned Kyle Anderson earlier. We bid a job in Phoenix and were awarded the project, and we're teamed with a local sheet metal contractor down there, and that's how I met Kyle. I went to a kickoff meeting down there, and they were using MLP, and Kyle was who showed up at the meeting, and so we kind of just had some conversations and didn't know too much about MLP at the time, and then one of our pre-construction managers came to me about 6 months later and said, can you guys draw sheet metal? And I said, no, that's not what we do. And so he's like, well, do you know anybody that can? And I said, I'll be honest with you. I said, I know of a company. I know very little about them. I haven't had a chance to really vet them out, but I got a name, and we can reach out to him and see what we can come up with. And so I had Kyle's information, and so I emailed Kyle, and I think Mike called me back, and we visited for a little bit, and then got me in touch with Eric, and kind of the rest was history. And that was a project we were doing in Atlanta, and having Eric on board at that point in time, before we had signed a sheet metal contractor, and having Eric's expertise and to kind of go through. And then at that time, with the sheet metal contractor that we selected in Atlanta was a fabrication customer. They were still in AutoCAD, and that they were looking to transition to Revit. And so Eric and Kyle, I think, kind of helped train those guys and get them up to speed, and spend as much time as they needed to, and kind of handed over the project to them. And we didn't skip a beat, and kind of had a similar situation on another project in South Central Missouri that Eric stepped in, and we thought we were going to have a similar situation, and it turned out that the contractor just didn't have the resources to take that whole project on, and it was just determined early on that it made sense for MLP just to do the whole scope of work for them. And so it's been pretty successful for us.
Yeah, Kyle Anderson, man, he's a legend. He's really good at what he does. He's always been good at it. I think he graduated top of his class through the apprenticeship. The dude burnt himself out though, man. It's kind of heartbreaking. He's not even in BIM anymore. So the industry lost a good dude because he worked himself to death, man. I'd love to have him back, but yeah, right now I don't know where. I think he's working at a grocery store or something. So, but I do miss him. It's good to hear good things about him. But yeah, I'd love to have you back and do another topic on blending BIM or something like that, because some of those points you had brought up about the reason you don't hire or outsource piping, plumbing, obviously you have your own workflows, you have your own standards, you have the way you do your sheets, the way you do your shops, the way you model your content, the certain types of fittings you use, and probably 10 other things I didn't say.
Sure.
And for us as a subcontractor that works for multiple subcontractors just doing BIM, it's such a struggle to have to conform to everybody's different standards, right? Especially when you got new guys, because you're like, okay, so they're starting to think that MMC standard on this project is the way we're supposed to do it on all projects. But no, now you're working for Harris, but they want to do it this way. No, now you're on a K-Corp job, so you got to do it this way. So
absolutely. I know there's difficult. It's got to be difficult.
So my struggle is like, in my position, I feel like I should be the one creating standards, but I can't create standards when our standards are like conforming to everyone we work for, right? It's very rare that we have a project where the company's like, just do it your way.
I think for us, I think the most important thing is when we're looking at a outsourcing the piping is obviously code knowledge, local code knowledge. So whether it's IPC, UPC, and having somebody come in and if they're asked to do the plumbing scope and ask those questions and really dig in, just like, you know, whether they were working for MLP or they were working for MMC, dig in and own it, and then, you know, put forth the quality and just kind of follow through. And because that's the big thing that we even see internally, especially since we've kind of transitioned to the Stratus workflow through the shop, is, you know, our models have to be perfect. There is no more, you know, fudge and spool sheets and all the stuff that we were able to get away with before. You know, we're publishing our models straight from Revit to Stratus, and then the shop's taking it from there and doing everything. And if we forget to go through and you know, I say optimize links, but not really optimize links, go back and check all of our links and check all of our connectivity and all that, you know, they ding us on it. So it's just that quality, and it's the stuff that we struggle with internally. So we built some tools through internal development to kind of help with some of that stuff. But that's really the main thing, is just the local code knowledge and the quality of what goes into the product.
Definitely. And I heard you guys have some pretty good barbecue out there in KC. Is that true?
Well, we do, but Mike and Eric would not be good ones to judge, because rather than taking our local knowledge, they decided to go out and get whatever they wanted to. So they both got the lamb chops when they were here. And I'm not saying the lamb chops were not good, but I don't know of anybody that's ever eaten the lamb chops here. So, but yeah, we do have some excellent barbecue joints, and you know, I used to be the barbecue snob, but once I started traveling quite a bit and having an opportunity to try different stuff from around the country, you know, a lot of people have their own unique spin on it, but yeah, we feel like we do it pretty good here, and so yeah, if you're ever up this way, you have to check it out.
Oh, definitely. I mean, this summer I plan on spending a lot of time outside. I don't have a smoker yet, though. Which one would you recommend?
Well,
so many out there now.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Michael and I were talking about it a few weeks ago when he was here, and you know, for me, I'm just a backyard griller, and I wouldn't by any means call myself an expert, but I go with the Traeger pellet smoker. But I think anybody that's a true pit master or considers herself a true barbecue aficionado would probably laugh at me, but I think that's what a lot of the backyard grillers, they get into the Traeger smokers. They're just easy, they're consistent, that's typically what most of the guys around here do. And you know, you can throw a brisket or some ribs or anything on there and you know, walk away from it, and you're not having to sit there and manage the wood and the time and all that like you would with true wood smoke and doing it the right way.
Yeah, I've definitely seen it. I know my mom's boyfriend got one a few years ago, and every year now we get smoked ham, smoked turkey, and smoked tri-tip. It's always heavenly. So,
oh, yeah.
I mean, if you're throwing a piece of meat on for Sunday, what's going on your smoker?
I typically, you know, I like to throw a brisket on, you know, and I think we do pretty good brisket here, but you know, I try different recipes, and I don't have one in particular, but you know, I try to do it. You know, I just did one a couple weeks ago, and I did a Texas style, and you know, every once in a while, you know, you can break it off and do break the point off and do burn ends, and you know, so that's kind of my favorite go-to. But you know, it's you know, sometimes we'll throw a whole chicken on there and let that go for a couple hours. You know, at Thanksgiving, we'll put a turkey breast on there. That's kind of became a favorite around my house, is doing a turkey breast on the Traeger. And so it's just kind of whatever we're in the mood for, but the Traeger sure does make it easy.
Good thing it's almost lunchtime, because I am hungry now. Well, sweet. I'm definitely gonna have to go check out some smokers. I definitely need to get one. I feel like I'm behind the curve on that. Everyone else is doing it, and I'm not feeling very hip, so
Yep,
to get me one.
definitely easy to do.
You know if Eric ever got his smoker? I know he was looking for a while.
I don't know if he did or not.
I'll have to check in on that. Well, Mike, I think we're gonna wrap up this BIMJA and Barbecue podcast with Jason Steele and Cody Ahern. I appreciate you guys' time. Hope you have a wonderful week.
Thanks, Cody. Thanks, Mike.